RFK Jr. Now, if you're not familiar with him, it's probably because he ran for president and nobody cared.
There was a time when late night TV could be relied upon to bring entertainment and joy, a kind of ferocious vivacity and excitement about American cultural life. But some time ago, I reckon it was around 2016, late night entertainment itself became a kind of propaganda. Maybe it always has been, maybe it was diffuse and homogenized in ways that made it difficult to discern and read. Maybe that's the function of a culture, to somehow mold and control you. Great big vast questions that unfold across millennia. But what's certain now is that the late night world has become part of the propaganda machinery, and even respected comedians like Stephen Colbert can be seen frequently advocating for ideas that might not be beneficial to their audience, and certainly suggest that they're only talking to one particular group. And that might not have been something that I myself would have been alert to until he began to attack Bobby Kennedy quite vociferously and frequently. Now, have a look at this speech of Stephen Colbert's, where he sort of talks about Bobby Kennedy, who's now, or from January, will be in charge of branches of government. That means he'll be able to significantly impact the health of Americans by controlling the excesses and deception of big food and big pharma. Let me know in the comments and chat if you think this is exactly the kind of reckoning that was required. Do you, not like me, have the image of America being turned into a vast carousel of unhealthy children dropped like larvae onto a conveyor belt so they can live their life eating processed seed oils and sugars, making them sick and unwell so that they can eventually be medicated for diabetes and heart disease, so that they can be blobbed up on Ozempic their entire lives? So when you're ridiculing someone like Bobby Kennedy, who's, an eccentric guy, an eccentric isn't a pejorative term. That means unusual. And the embrace of unusual or brilliant, excellent and advanced people used to be part of what American life was about. So have a look at Stephen Colbert's framing of Bobby Kennedy as an individual, neglecting to talk about the crisis in American health, the crisis in big pharma that needs to be addressed, the corruption in both of those industries, and the possibility of the state backed by and populated by the right political figures to oppose the kind of corruption that's been making America sick, and the possibility that now we could be making America healthy again. Let me know in the comments and chat what it tells you when Stephen Colbert attacks Bobby Kennedy in this way. Whose side is he on? What causes is he advocating for? We're going to look first of all at Stephen Colbert's speech. Then we're going to look at some facts about American nutrition and American corporate life, and how America may have been being poisoned for getting on for 50 years in order to create business opportunities. We have the examples now of the tobacco industry. We have numerous examples we can look at, in particular from the pandemic period, of how advocating for certain ideas might be beneficial to corporations and detrimental to ordinary Americans. It's just surprising when you see that done in the name of entertainment. Here's Stephen Colbert's speech where he's attacking Bobby Kennedy, and then we'll provide some analysis that shows you who this message benefits and who it harms.
We still don't know the entire parade of clowns, degenerates, and in-laws that Trump will have running this country, but one guy we know will have a major role is RFK Jr. Now, if you're not familiar with him, it's probably because he ran for president and nobody cared. But
okay, so we're going in with a derisory stance, a pejorative position, and a general sense of attack when it comes to Bobby Kennedy. Now, a little while ago, Bobby Kennedy would have been adored because he took on companies like, I think, Monsanto, and sort of advocated on behalf of rivers. If you care about the environment, if you're like a liberal person who cares about the values of environmentalism and civil rights and social justice, Bobby Kennedy could be a hero. But notice what they want to portray Kennedy as is a whack job and a crackpot and a weirdo, because it's not so easily available. What's not available are the tropes that you would use to attack Trump. Oh, he's a misogynist, he's a racist, he's a sexist. So it helps me to understand that as long as you are not part of the central authoritarian system, they will find a way to attack you. Trump, that's the way we attack him. Kennedy, that's the way we attack him. Joe Rogan, that's the way we attack him. Do you see? They'll find a way to attack you if your message is antithetical to this set of authoritarian interests that are becoming more apparent now, simply because, well, it looks like we're going to have more access to free speech.
We're familiar with him because he's done a whole mess of crazy stuff, including, but not limited to, admitting to dumping a dead bear in Central Park as a prank, living with an emu who would regularly attack his wife, owning 2 ravens who meditate with him every morning, bragging about his freezer full of roadkill.
Whilst that's very trivial information, what's brilliant about this is it's a lens into how legacy media works. It highlights information that could be beneficial. It metastasizes, makes negative information that in a different context you could regard almost as amusing or in fact heartening, like a guy that sort of meditates with ravens. I'm like, wow, that's interesting, that's fascinating. Like, do you notice what the function is of the media? To toxify your impression of a particular individual.
And beheading a whale, then strapping it to the roof of his minivan for a 5-hour drive home. Now, that sounds deranged, but he actually has a good reason for all of this. A worm got into his brain and ate a portion of it and then died. So, naturally.
Who is this for? What is the function of this monologue?
This whale decapitating, bear dumping, walking, talking worm cemetery is who Donald Trump wants to put in charge of our nation's health.
Right, so he is a comedian with a massive audience, and on the subject of health and the management of American health and the governing of American health, he's not talking to you about big pharma. He's not talking to you about lobbying and donors. He's not talking to you about the pandemic, where he advocated vociferously and aggressively for vaccines and even vaccine mandates, ridiculing people who were skeptical about taking vaccines, concerned people who were openly reporting vaccine injuries, getting pretty close to saying that if you didn't have a vaccine, you didn't deserve hospital care. I remember those things. Do you remember them? Let me know in the comments and chat. Do you remember when Colbert was broadcasting from home? Do you remember the kind of lachrymose tone of like, oh, we all have to stick together for America? Now, Bobby Kennedy at that time was way ahead of the curve. He'd already written his book and it was published, Anthony Fauci, The Real Anthony Fauci, where he talked about Fauci's corporate relationships. Do you see how highlighting and amplifying the trivial and the ridiculous? Oh, he cut a whale's head off. He had a brainworm. These are like ridiculous, tittle-tattle, trivial stories when Colbert could be, if he wanted to, be telling the story about how America is making Americans sick. That American food companies promote foods that are bad for Americans, that are making American children sick. That big pharma companies require you to be sick. That we could be on the precipice, if America doesn't change radically, of advocating for a whole raft of kids to start taking a drug like Ozempic. Grand Canyon University, a private Christian university in Phoenix, believe that we are endowed by our Creator to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness from the Constitution. A Christian university, eh? GCU believe in equal opportunities and equip everyone to serve others in ways that promote human flourishing, creating, as they believe, a ripple effect of transformation. Whether your pursuit involves a bachelor's, a master's, or a doctoral degree, GCU's online and on-campus learning environments are designed to help you achieve your unique goals. Why don't you learn a bit more? With over 340 academic programs as of March 2024, GCU provide you with a path to fulfill your dreams. The pursuit to serve others is yours. Let it flourish. Wow, that's a pretty profound goal, isn't it? Because everything we do is about self, and this is about service. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Private, Christian, affordable education. Visit gcu.edu/Russell. That's visit gcu.edu/Russell. 2 S's, 2 L's. Give it a try. Thanks. Notice how it works. Smear the opponent, ridicule them, and distract you from a really important idea. Do you think that big food and big pharma might have a bit too much control over the food that ordinary Americans eat and the way that ordinary Americans treat health? Oughtn't metabolic health be brought to the forefront? Oughtn't more of us be outside, exercising, eating well? Oughtn't your government be advocating for that? Like, amidst all that crazy litany of stories, and I admit they do sound kind of crazy, the brain worm and the cutting off a whale's head or a bear in a park. What it tells you is that Bobby Kennedy's an outdoor guy that probably goes hunting and is connected to nature. Things that probably if more of us did, and you know me, I'm not advocating for hunting or nothing like that, but if you hunt, that's up to you. It's not my business. It's not my job to tell you what to do and what not to do. It's my job to tell you not to trust people who act like they're there to help you when in fact they're facilitating the government's control of you. And that's precisely what's happening there, because he's not talking about, but we will be in a second, the number of people that work at the FDA that have a relationship with Pfizer, the number of people that worked at Moderna, both vaccine manufacturers, that took up roles in government, or vice versa, because it's all a giddy little carousel. And in fact, those are the kind of relationships we should be reporting about, joking about, commenting on, because that's the stuff that's going to affect your life. It's not going to affect you if, hey, imagine Bobby Kennedy is a bit eccentric. If he's a bit eccentric and he's willing to take on massive corporations, that's going to be good for your children. If he's like, not an eccentric person, like the kind of bureaucrats that are going to try and be making into heroes for the last 20 years, these sort of dullards and people that are semi-celebrities, those people just do what they're told. And if they do what they're told, your kids end up eating bad food and taking bad medicine. Well, possibly that's being disrupted now.
Here he is last week.
Robert F. Kennedy cares more about human beings and health and the environment than anybody. I'm going to let him go wild on health. I'm going to let him go wild on the food. I'm going to let him go wild on medicines.
Oh, good. Because that's exactly how I like my medicine. Wild. It's just like the directions on the pill bottle say, go crazy balls every 2 to 4 hours with food.
Like, think about the number of people that are on Xanax. There shouldn't be. Even in that joke, there's a revelation of more significant information. Think about the number of people you know that are on meds for depression and for anxiety. The number of people that are overweight, obese, and have got chronic diseases. Think about what's happened since that pandemic era. The rise of heart disease. Let me know in the comments and chat how many people you know that have had heart problems since then. You think, they shouldn't have had a heart problem. The number of people that have developed weird neurological conditions. The rise of the turbo cancer. Where's Albert Bourla now? Where's Fauci now? Where are all of these advocates now? They are masked behind that veneer of glistening propaganda that passes as entertainment every single night because we've all allowed ourselves to become docile and accept that late night talk show hosts, many of whom I, kind of like in a way, like, I like them as entertainers or whatever, because they are advocating for propaganda, centrist control, ridiculing a person that's pretty brave and pretty bold and pretty up for taking on corporations, which is exactly what you need. They're advocating for not for your slaughter, but for the slow degeneration and kind of decay of America into a country of near perpetual incarceration, a living penitentiary where you eat bad food and take bad medicine, and all the while we laugh along in chilled studios with chilled hosts.
And RFK Jr. is ready for his wilding. Here he is yesterday talking about food deregulation.
Why do we have Fruit Loops in this country that have 18 or 19 ingredients, and you go to Canada and it's got 2 or 3?
Do you know, right? That actually, I let my kids eat that kind of stuff, but don't you, it's not good for them. You know that if we had a better run country with more regenerative farming, with more localized food resourcing, with more awareness of nutrition, where food stamps weren't spent on Coca-Cola, you know that everything could be done so beautifully and so much better. There's no optimism about it. There's no appetite for it because I reckon probably, Kellogg's and Kraft spend significant money advertising on those networks, so the jokes that are about Kellogg's and Kraft don't make it through. Instead, Crowder goes out there to bat on behalf of big food. Do you know that it's not good for your kids to eat seed oils and processed sugars? You know that you want your kids to be healthier. You know that these kind of nexus of lobbying interests and media propaganda and donations are all amounting to us, the population of countries like mine and countries like yours, not being regarded as civilians, but regarded as subjects, not being regarded as awakened wonders, but being regarded as a kind of resource. This is so significant because it's passing as entertainment. Ha 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 ha. Isn't Bobby Kennedy ridiculous? Isn't it ludicrous? It's telling you not to take that guy seriously, but it's also telling you not to take the subject of your children's health seriously. That's why it's so dangerous and toxic, because it's being passed off as entertainment.
Now, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. There were no worms lining up to eat portions of my brain, but I went to the Kellogg's Canada website, and it turns out the Canadian Fruit Loops actually have
So that's okay then.
26 ingredients.
That's the joke, that we're at the amount of ingredients in Canadian Fruit Loops. That's the joke. Not, hey, does big food have a stranglehold over American lives? Do big pharma need to face a reckoning for what went on during the pandemic? Is free speech being controlled? Why are people voting for this guy Trump that we're all saying is a Nazi night after night? Have we completely lost touch?
And that doesn't even count the gravy, which Canadians use to make fruitine.
The war against free speech is in full swing. We are the vanguard, bravely fighting back. Rumble's the home of this channel, Stay Free, and a leader in defending the fundamental human right of free speech. They've joined X to sue a cartel of advertisers and ad agencies who conspire to block ad revenue from going to the platforms. Recently, they've launched Rumble Premium. This, I think, is going to be a game changer for all of us. It's an ad-free viewing experience with great perks for viewers and creators. Rumble Premium will give you the ability to dive into your favorite content on your mobile or desktop or smart TV and savor every uninterrupted second of my content. Why don't you upgrade to Rumble Premium today? Support my free speech and the free speech of other content creators on this platform. Please go to Rumble now, rumble.com/premium. And if you use the code BRAND, you'll save $10 and Rumble will be aware that our stream is creating great converts. So that's rumble.com/premium and do use the code BRAND to save $10. Anyway, there's a link there at the bottom of the screen now. We're posting it in the chat. Join up. Let's have a look at some hard facts. You might have seen this over the course of the weekend. We were checking it out. Okay, between 2006 and 2019, out of 10 FDA commissioners, 9 out of 10 FDA commissioners went on to work for the pharmaceutical companies they were in charge of regulating. 9 out of 10 FDA commissioners. There's a good subject for a joke. That's a good, so rather than the ingredients in Fruit Loops, let's look at this. Approximately 65% of the FDA's drug review budget comes directly from the pharmaceutical industry. Americans are the sickest people on the planet, and our health agencies are blatantly compromised. RFK Jr. and the Maha movement will benefit Republicans, Democrats, independents, and all people on the planet. Look at that list of various FDA employees that went on to work at either Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, Moderna, Pfizer. Look at Anthony Fauci at the bottom of it. The people they tell you are heroes, in the case of Anthony Fauci, do you remember that guy? So he was like he was some sort of bureaucrat. Elvis, is it okay to find him sexy? Look at him. Have you seen Anthony Fauci interviewed on MSNBC? And look at the ridicule of a figure like RFK. Let me know in the comments and chat, who do you think is more beneficial to America and Americans, Anthony Fauci or Bobby Kennedy? Let me know. Right, now let's have a look at this. Here's some further facts about big food and big commercials. These are the kind of things that late night entertainment talk show hosts should be drawing our attention to. Think about it for a while. For a long time, your country, that in a sense is the birthplace of stand-up comedy, created comedians that took on these subjects and then took them on in mainstream media. There are still comedians like it around, like Chappelle, I guess, being one, and Rogan, I suppose. Let's have a look at this. Big agriculture spends more money on lobbying in Washington than the defense industry. Agribusiness interests have spent over $500 million lobbying Congress over the past 5 years. Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, and 27 other companies spend close to $40 million a year in an effort to make their voices heard by lawmakers and regulators. How do you think that kind of influence impacts America and trickles down? Lobbyists routinely transition from Congress, the Federal Trade Commission, and the FDA or the USDA to work on the behalf of a company or trade group. Influential groups that help shape US food policy and steer consumers towards nutritional products have financial ties to the world's largest processed food companies. The shift away from fresh whole foods like fruit and vegetables towards high calorific diets that feature heavily processed and extensively marketed food products products has contributed to obesity rates that have reached historic highs. About 678,000 Americans die each year from chronic food illness. That toll is higher than all our combat deaths in every war in American history combined. What can we glean from those facts and the approach of Stephen Colbert in that bit? I'm not trying to morally assess Stephen Colbert, but the reason that bit made me so angry is because the entertainment industry is supposed to love you. It's supposed to be the feeling of love coming out. That's what entertainment is. It's difficult to laugh at people if you don't think they love you and you don't love them. Well, if that food's killing you, what can you discern from that approach when someone like Bobby Kennedy, who is willing to take on those interests, is ridiculed and you're told not to take him seriously? He's got a brainworm, he killed a whale or whatever. Things that are admittedly kind of crazy sounding. Well, it makes me feel like America hates its subjects. Not all of America, of course not, but an aspect of the American entertainment industry. And it sort of disturbs me, obviously, because I've been part of it. Over 45% of US deaths from heart disease, stroke, or diabetes are linked to diet. 2/3 of severe COVID cases resulting in hospitalization were attributed to 4 diet-caused diseases: obesity, diabetes, hypertension, and heart failure. In other words, these hospitalizations could have been prevented if the patient didn't have these diseases. The economic cost of nutrition-related chronic diseases has been estimated at $16 trillion over the period from 2011 to 2020. So, what that tells you is something that's being trivialized, like the ascent of a figure like Bobby Kennedy. The fact that 3% of votes was probably that he would have got as president, as a presidential nominee, has probably been significant in Trump's re-election. Tells you that America has changed and that there is a possibility to take on exactly these kind of powers. Big agriculture, big food, big pharma, the legacy media, the institutions that benefit from keeping America the same, keeping poor people of all cultures and colors eating disgusting food and living a life of sickness, obesity, diabetes, and heart conditions, all conditions that came to the forefront during the pandemic period, during which time you were censored if you tried to talk about that stuff. You were ridiculed if you had concerns about taking the medications that the very same interests, Big Pharma and the media, were advocating for, in conjunction with the state, obviously, in that instance. So we can kind of believe this into being. This is an opportunity for real change. In particular, Bobby Kennedy is a person that I know. I can't claim to know other members of the potential government that will begin in January, but him, I know him, and I know that he's serious. And even aside from any personal connection, go read that book that he wrote about the real Anthony Fauci, that when it was the #1 selling book in America, was banned from the New York Times bestsellers list for the same reason. People don't want you having access to that type of information. So whether you're talking about free speech or which people get smeared and ridiculed, the same themes occur again and again and again. The control of information, the control of your life. And what concerns me most of all is not that when it's coming out of bureaucratic agencies or when it's coming out of corporations, but when it's coming through the media, because I suppose I've been part of that at different points, and I know what it's like if you stop being part of that. And I know how that serpent can turn and what its writhing and peristalsis is like when it tries to regurgitate you back out into the world. Do not trust legacy media in any of its forms, even in its soft forms, even when it's claiming to campaign and advocate for good causes. They want you dumb. They want you under total control. They want you incarcerated in the prison of your mind and in the prison of a sort of soft society where you eat soft foods, with your soft belly, where you can't stand up and oppose. There might now be the opportunity to oppose that kind of disgusting corruption in real time with real leadership. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the comments and the chat? If you're watching this on YouTube, turn on the notification bell and subscribe, because guess what? You might see this stuff now because some of these anti-free speech censorship bureaucracies are being challenged by how fast the world's changing, and it's changing because of you.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.